Acts 7, verse 38, the church in the wilderness. What does that mean? What is meant by Acts 7, verse 38? I'll read the whole verse. It says, this is he that was in the church in the wilderness with the angel which spake to him in the Mount Sinai, and with our fathers who receive the lively oracles to give unto us. Acts 7, verse 38, church in the wilderness, giving all praise to Yahweh Bashem, Yahushua Bashem, HaKadosh. Giving all praises to Yahweh Bashem, Yahushua Bashem, HaKadosh. Now, let's go to, because we got to find out who made that statement. It was Stephen's defense. I want to go right to the point. Well, this is Stephen. Let me see. Let me go to the 6th chapter. Let me. Let's go to the 7th verse, Acts 6, verse 7. And the word of the Most High increased like it's increasing now, and the number of the disciples multiplied in Jerusalem greatly, and a great company of the priests were obedient to the faith. So you had a lot of these scribes and Pharisees and priests that believed that that's the Messiah, that the person that died on the cross and came back as a Messiah. So we sleep on this verse right here, Acts 6, verse 7. And the word of the Most High increased, and the number of the disciples loosely translated, meaning students, multiplied in Jerusalem greatly, and a great company of priests were obedient to the faith. They believed in Yahushua. And when you go back a couple of verses, second chapter, go back a couple of chapters, excuse me. 2nd chapter speaks about they receiving the gifts of tongues, of speaking in different languages, because you had Israelites, you had Grecians. Let me do this. You had Grecians. Acts 6, verse 1. And in those days, when the number of the disciples was multiplied, there arose a murmuring of the Grecians against the Hebrews. So if you don't understand the scriptures, like vocab, you would say that, oh, these are talking about white people. Okay, it says Grecians here, then it says in other places as Greeks. So what's the difference between a Grecian and a Greek? The difference is, and I'm gonna speak on it and I'm gonna show you, the difference between the Grecian and the Greek is the Grecians in the NT, the New Testament, were Israelites that knew that they were Israelites that were living outside of the land of Israel, the Palestine, Jerusalem, Nazareth, Bethlehem, wherever, Israel as a whole, as that they were not living there, but they would do a pilgrimage Now, Deuteronomy 16:16 says 3 times in a year. So every year they were doing every, you would come during the Passover, the Feast of Weeks, then you would come 7 months later for the the tabernacles and so forth. So that was a pilgrimage that they had. And they didn't just come from Alexandria, Egypt, or Greece. They came from all over. These were Israelites living in other lands who kept the law, statutes, and commandments, read the scriptures. And they knew when it came to those high holy days, Deuteronomy 16, verse 16, they made a pilgrimage. Look up the word pilgrimage. It means it's a long, loosely translated, a long journey for like a religious gathering or whatever. Like you have the Hajj in Mecca. Well, you got people that are in the religion, that are part of the religion of Islam, that live all around the world, live in England, live in America, live in France, and they make a pilgrimage to go to Mecca, right? Same thing that happened here. They made a pilgrimage for the high holy days, or these specific high holy days. Passover, the weeks, and the tabernacle, the feast of tabernacle. And we're going to keep those days in the kingdom. So it says, first verse, in those days, when the number of disciples was multiplied, there arose a murmuring of the Grecians. So let's look up the word Grecians. Let's see what it says. See, this is something that these churches don't go into. You come across the word Grecian, you think about a white person. You come across the word Greek, you think about a white person. You come across the word Gentile, especially in the New Testament and in the Old Testament, it's not talking about other nations, it's talking about Israelites. So the difference between the Grecian and the Greek is a Grecian knew that they were Israelites living outside of the land, not just living in Greece. All over, that was a common label given to them. They were known as Grecians. Grecians, right? And to show you that these Grecians were Israelites that were a part of the body of Israel, the believers of the Messiah, because the Gentiles Cornelius didn't even come in until the 10th chapter. And the Lord said, go not into the way of the Gentiles, neither into any city of the Samaritans, enter ye not, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So these Greeks, Gentiles, Israelites that didn't know that they were Israelites were part of the lost sheep. The scriptures speak about another fold. Let's get that real quick. And everybody's talking about nationality now. I was just watching a video, like it was a 5-minute clip, and it was from a Tariq Nasheed show, but somebody took the clip out, and there's one caller called in, and he said, he was like somewhat in the defense of Dane Calloway, whatever his name is, because his thing is the so-called black people are really not black, that they're Indians. I don't watch enough of his videos to know, and that they were here, before Columbus got over here. So all you so-called African Americans, you're really not Africans. You're really Gadites. All you Negroes from down south, there's different shades of Indians and different tribes of Indians. That's all he's saying. He's basically saying that, I don't want to put words in his mouth because I don't watch enough of his videos, but I came across a couple of videos here and there. He's saying that whole thing of ships coming over here and bringing Africans over here is a myth, not true. Okay, where did I go? Okay, let me do this here. So I clicked on Grecian, right? And the word is Helene. You know what? Let me come back. Give me a second. Give me a second. I don't know how the hell this happened. Let me go back to Acts. Acts 6, verse 1. And I'm gonna show you vocab basically called all Israelites devils. Another video, one guy, when vocab was calling himself interpreting Mark's the 7th chapter about the dirty hands. He was talking about you had the Jews that dwelt among the Gentiles, that they were eating anything, and somebody in the audience yelled out, you know, like all kind of debaucherous, unclean foods, and somebody in the audience yelled out a Mexican food. That was clearly a diss. It's obvious the guy was racist against Mexicans, and what vocab said was, I didn't say that. So they're racist, man. They're racist. They're the worst kind of devils. Christian devils. Christian identity. What's that all about? Anyway, okay, let me see. Grecians, all right? I don't know how I came across Greeks. Okay, so this is Hellenistes, which is different from Hellene. Acts 6, verse 1. In those days when the number of the disciples was multiplied, these Grecians were also disciples, so they had to be Israelites. There arose a murmuring of the Grecians against the Hebrews because their widows were neglected in the daily ministration. You got to go back to Acts 4 when they made all things common. So they would give to. So there was a sort of a discrimination against Israelites that were not born in Israel, and that's how Jake does, man. You know, Jake comes from down south. He comes up to New York. They're gonna laugh at him because of his accent, the way he dresses, the way he carries himself. I mean, that doesn't happen that much because now you have like East Coast, West Coast. You got the South, the dirty. You got Jake from the South that they constantly come back and forth to New York. So you got guys that been living down south for years that got a New York accent because they're more. What's this dude? Ludacris. Ludacris has like an East Coast New York style of rapping. And why is that? Because he has, look it up, because he back and forth from Atlanta. I mean, Atlanta is more progressive. You can go to Atlanta and people don't talk with thick accents, but depending on where you go, he has people up here in New York, specifically in Mount Vernon, New York, where Priest Danya Allah's originally from. I believe he still lives there. Believe me, I know Mount Vernon like the back of my hand. I used to live there too, partially. Anyway, it says, in those days, when the number of the disciples were multiplied, there arose a murmuring of the Grecians against the Hebrews because their widows were neglected in the daily administration. Okay, it's also in Acts 9:29, Acts 11:20. Let's read them, these scriptures. And he spake boldly in the name of Adawan Yahushai. And some fool said, and I blocked him. Some fool said, Well, the name of the Lord is in English, it's Jesus. Jesus is not a word, it's just a two-syllable sound. And disputed against the Grecians. But let me read that again. And he spake boldly in the name of Yahweh, of the Lord Yahushai, and disputed against the Grecians, but they went about to slay him. Acts 11, verse 20. And some of them were men of Cyprus and Cyrene, which when they were come to Antioch spake unto the Grecians, preaching the Lord Yahushai. So obviously these Grecians, these Hellenistas were Israelites living outside of the land of Israel, the land of Palestine. But they knew that they were Israelites. They kept the Sabbath. Whatever land that they came from, they kept the Sabbath. Okay, so that's one group. So now let's go to the other group. Let's deal with the other word, Greek. So this is the difference between. Where the hell is it? Bear with me for a minute. The scripture says, study to show thyself approved, right? Yeah, let me do it this way. Let me go to Galatians 3. There is neither Jew nor Greek. Now, it says Greek instead of Grecian, Acts 6:1. There is neither bond nor free. There is neither male nor female, for ye are all one in Hamashiach Yahushua. So what do you mean by Greeks? Okay, Tahar, you broke down Grecians. Okay, we can believe that. Yes, there were Israelites living outside of the land that was speaking the language of that land, but they knew that they were Israelites. So these got to be white people. No, these are Jakes that didn't know they were Jakes, or Israelites that didn't know that they were Israelites at the time, coming back into the fold. Like all of us. Before you heard, let's deal with the state camps. How are they teaching that they're Israelites? Like the GMS, IUIC, you got all these different ISUPK, you got the Sakari, and you got other groups, HODC. You got a whole lot of different groups. Some of them calling themselves GMS, some of them calling themselves, like I said, these different names. Before they heard this, they were Gentiles. They went to church, whether their parents, their father was Islam, their mother was a Baptist, whether they were Roman Catholics, which is heavy among Latin tribes, so-called Latin tribes. They were all considered Gentiles, but in reality, they were what? They were Israelites. That's why the Apostle Paul said what he said in 1 Corinthians, the 12th chapter. Read the first 2 verses. He said, ye were Gentiles, carried away by these dumb idols. In other words, the people of the church of Corinth were all Israelites that for the most part, they were going by their own customs. Give you a perfect example. Men having long hair was a Greek custom, was a custom of the Greeks. The men with the long hair. So they brought them customs with them. Just like you have Israelites that come into this thing, they got tattoos all over them. Now, there's a way to get that off by laser. Don't cost that much. You know, all you guys should look into that. You put it on, you need to get it back off. Get them tattoos off you, man. The spirit was never with me to get no tattoo. Never in life. The only thing I came close to doing something close to a tattoo was putting pierce my ear, put an earring in my ear. And I used to get a lot of attention from the galleys, you know, give you that extra. But I took that thing off. I was wrestling at that, wrestling, boxing and stuff. You can't wear no earrings, you know. But I did that out of like a bet. A friend of mine said, because you get two, you know, a piercing in either ear, right? Two piercing for a certain price. He said, yo, man, if you get a pierce, I'll get a pierce. Man, I dare you to get your ear pierced. So on like a dare, I said, yeah, go ahead, pierce my ear. That thing lasted for about a month, and I pulled that shit out and I threw it away, and my ear closed back up. But anyway, just like ear piercing, you got Jakes with these crazy haircuts, you know, the mohawks, the high top fades, no beards on your face. You chop your beard up, you know, Fu Manchu, you line yourself up. If you want to get technical, you don't line yourself up. And a man's supposed to have relatively short hair. That's why Paul made a big deal about that. And then he said in the following verse, he said, was that 1 Corinthians 11? He said that we know no customs. As a matter of fact, let me get that. I'm a little all over the place. Please forgive me, but got to cover all things. Okay, where's that? 1 Corinthians. And this is why Vocab Malone, so many Jakes from the church, they're leaving that Christianity bullshit because you're giving that old time religion. They don't want to hear that shit no more. 11. Let me do this. Do it this way, custom. Okay. I want to go get up above, go a couple of verses above that. Okay. I'll start the 9th verse, 1 Corinthians 11, verse 9. Neither was the man created for the woman, but the woman for the man. You know what I come to find out in my journeys, in my experience of life? A woman is just a big boy toy. When you were a kid, you got the little Tonka toys, the little G.I. Joe, whatever, the video games. And then when you hit 11, really 11, when I hit 11, that's when I discovered girls. You know, when I was 8, you get out of here. You girls, get out of here. When you hit like 11, 12 years old, that's when you discover, you look at women, you look at them. And except for you guys on the pickle bus, you know who you are. The short yellow bus, 15, 16 years old, you discovering, you figuring out what a woman is. You know, me and my so-called boys, when we were 11, 12 years old, that's all we used to think about. We used to grab the little girls' butts. We used to, you know, steal things to get money and take the girls. We used to go to church just to get the girls. And those were the girls, inside joke. We used to get money. We used to go to this one man's house, like we used to dress up with a suit and tie. And we would go to this man's house, Jake man, and he would be getting ready for church. And he's thinking that we really want to learn about the Lord, right? And we'd be in his room and we would open his drawer and we would just snatch. We wouldn't snatch a lot. He wouldn't notice it missing. We might take about $5 or $6 singles. He didn't know that shit was missing. And then, you know, back then, movies were like, what, 50 cents, 75 cents? And we used to have money in our pocket. We used to go to church. We used to scope out, oh, I want her. That's what I want to know. I want to get with her. Then we would say, yo, you want to go to the movie? You want to go to movies? And we'd take them to the movies, man. And they didn't have no money. We had the money. So at the end of the day, with everything said and done, a woman is just nothing but a big boy's toy. That's all. the reason why you go to the club, the reason why you spend money, because it's to lead to having sex with that woman. You ain't trying to have no kids, and then you have a kid, but you got kind of like the woman, and then you may get married, or you may, be what's under what they call a common law marriage. 7 years is considered common law marriage, which went out in 1938. That's when the Constitution was done away with. Okay, like George Baby Bush said, the Constitution is nothing but a damn piece of paper. And you know what? He was right. They don't deal with the Constitution. They don't deal with the Constitution. You go to any of them courts, they deal with their ordinances. And if you mention Constitution, they'll hold you in contempt, because they don't. As of 1938, there was a case. What was the case? Damn, so long that I went into the law. Case law. Look up case law. I'm not going to explain it to you. What was the case? Tompkins versus Erie Railroad. And it overturned Swift versus Tyson. And now you got to go, you do that's a whole nother subject. But if you understand that case that overturned Swift versus Tyson, which are both United States Supreme Court cases, which is known as case law, common law. They went to the highest court in the land, and what they did was Constitution done away with. It's just a document. It's just a damn piece of paper. Okay? That's why they're having such a big deal about the gun legislation. Because all they got to do is bring out the Second Amendment. We don't deal with the Constitution no more. What is that? Marbury versus Madison. To read that case. It says, let me not get into that. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. It says, neither was the man created for the woman, but the woman for the man. So a woman has no power over their bodies. You have the power. And then she has some power over you too. You just can't go around putting your thing in everything and bring back disease to your house. That's why it speaks about marriage. And you should have, one woman. And that should be your wife, like IUIC says. But if you have 2 or 3 women, ain't nothing wrong with that either. Okay? So now it says, for this cause ought the woman to have power on her head because of the angels. Nevertheless, neither is the man without the woman, neither the woman without the man in Yahweh. Now you're gonna have women that are unbelievers. You're gonna have men that are unbelievers. You can't force them to be a believer. For as a woman is of the man, even so is the man also by the woman, but all things of the Most High. Judge in yourselves, is it comely or good that a woman pray unto the Most High uncovered? Doeth not even nature itself teach you that if a man have long hair, it is a shame unto him? But if a woman have long hair, it is a glory unto her, for her hair is given her for a covering. But if any man seem to be contentious against what? The 14th verse. Doeth not even nature itself teach you that if a man have long hair, it is a shame to him? And the reason why you had a lot of guys men that were part of the group, the Israelites of Corinth, is because they came out of that Greco-Roman fashion. They wasn't circumcised, so they had to eventually get circumcised. But if a woman have long hair, it is glory unto her, for her hair is given her for a covering. But if any man, going back to the 14th verse, it's a shame for a man to have long hair. But if any man seem to be contentious, they want to argue about it, we have no such custom, neither the churches of the Most High. So the other churches, they don't, there's no guys with long hair, because they didn't come out of that Greco-Roman fashion, whatever. So what does the word custom mean? Let's deal with the word custom. Okay, intercourse with one, intimacy, custom, a being used to, accustomed. You see people with doing, dressing a certain way, the hairstyles a certain way. You change with the trends. At one time, bell bottoms were the things, and platform shoes. You see somebody walking with bell bottoms and platform shoes, looking like they jump out of the yellow bus in the Partridge Family. You're gonna look at them like they're crazy, because the customs change. So Paul said that's not any customs of any of the churches. So the order is by the Apostle Paul is cut that damn hair, you men. You women, you can keep your long hair. And he explains it. Anyway, I went all around the world. Let me come back. Let me deal with the word Greek. Okay, Mark 7, verse 26, the woman was a Greek, a Syrophoenician by nation. The woman was an Israelite, okay? Oh, Luke 23, verse 38, and a superscription, also, super meaning over, something that was written over him, also was written over him in letters of Greek and Latin and Hebrew. Why was it written in letters in Greek and Latin and Hebrew? Because you had Israelites that spoke only Greek, Israelites that spoke only Latin, Israelites that spoke Greek and Hebrew. This is the King of the Jews. Oh, John 19, verse 20. Mind you, this is before Cornelius, all right? Because you say, well, the Gentiles were let in with the opening of Cornelius coming in. Okay, well, this is all before Cornelius came on the scene. It said this title, when read, many of the Jews, okay, I don't want to read that, I read that. Greek, Timothy's father was a Greek, meaning he was an Israelite. He wasn't a Grecian. He was a Greek, meaning he whether he knew he was an Israelite or he looked like an Israelite, but I'm not an Israelite, right? I know there's one Greek guy that looked like a straight up dark skinned Dominican. When I first said this dude's a Dominican, the dude was a Greek. Okay. Remember Tony Orlando and Don? Tony Orlando, everybody thought he was a Puerto Rican, right? Do you know that Tony Orlando is a Greek? This guy, Freddie Prinze. Oh, he's Puerto Rican. He's from the hood. He's from Spanish Harlem. No, he's Hungarian. But they had the flavor of the tribes because they were of the tribes. Anyway, let me deal with the word Greek now. And I promise you, I'm gonna show you what this demon vocab says in the video. Hellene is different from Hellenistas. Hellenistas is an Israelite that knows he's an Israelite but lives outside the land and have customs of the other nations. Okay, a Greek, either by nationality, whether a native of the mainland or of the Greek islands or colonies, in a wider sense, you got to go back to the Maccabees because they forced us to be Greeks. In a wider sense, the name embracing all nations, not Jews, that made the language, custom, and learning of Greek their own. The primary reference is to a difference of religion and worship. So they worship those Greek gods. Serapis Christus, Apostle Cabal always mentioned that. So now let's look up Acts 6. Grecians. The word for Grecians. The word for Grecians is Hellenistas, which means a Hellenist, one who imitates the manners and customs of the worship of the Greeks and use the Greek tongue. In this case, the Hellenistas or the Grecians were Israelites that they spoke very little Hebrew. All right. And it came back and forth from Greece and other countries that knew that they were Israelites for the pursuant to Deuteronomy 16, verse 16. Read it yourself. It says, using in the New Testament, of Jews born in foreign lands and speaking Greek. So who were the widows that were neglected in Acts 6? They were Jews born in foreign lands and speaking Greek. That's why they discriminated against them. So that's the difference between a Grecian and a Greek. A Greek is an Israelite that didn't know that he was an Israelite, that came back into the fold, like all of us would be classified as Greeks. I'm sorry. Now let's go. I did a whole lesson, but this is for the newer people that don't understand. You brothers have been in this thing for 10, 13, 14, 15 years. You are, let me see, bear me for a minute. Oh. And I'm gonna say this again. This is a commercial pushing the religion of Islam, and it's on Vocab Malone. I think out of 10 videos that I clicked on Vocab's pages, I think 9 times out of 10, it's pushing Islam. Now, would you allow Buddhism or witchcraft commercial come on your site? No. So he's all about money. That's all that nigga's about. It's about money. But I want to see. I want to see. Bear with me for a minute. I think it's right here. These are the stipulations of their day. Under the new covenant, not the old covenant. That's what they were. These are the stipulations of Greek. You know, like they were Greeks. They didn't like. Then there was a sect of the Jews who didn't go off not any of that. They just lived like they were Greeks. They didn't like. They just like I was being Greek. You know. Yeah, some wanted to follow the Greco-Roman ways, like Julius Alexander, Tiberius Julius Alexander. He was raised up as an Alexandrian Jew, meaning he was a Jake. But then he said, "No, I don't want to be a Jew no more. I want to be a Roman, Greco-Roman." And he killed a lot of his people during the time period of 70 AD. You know what I mean by 70 AD? 66 AD, during the time of Nero, all the way up to 74 AD. That was it. They called the first Roman Jewish War, Jewish Roman War. Look it up. Listen up. I want you to catch this guy making a racist statement against Mexicans. They don't give a damn about Mexicans. And then this guy didn't put him in check. These are the stipulations of their day. Under the new covenant, not the old covenant. That's what they were.
to do at that time. A lot of Jews didn't care about that. Just give me the money, right? I mean, all people do that. You know, sell out principles, whatever. I'm not saying it's a Jewish thing. Some people are all anti-Semitic. That's not what I'm saying. But the Pharisees at least were trying, but it ended up a lot of times being a failed attempt. Now, what's going on? Jesus is not in Jerusalem, but these guys are called in the big dogs. Do you see that? With some of the scribes who would come from where? Jerusalem. So it's like Houston, we have a problem. Got this guy over here, we don't really know the least. Then there was a section of Jews who didn't care. Notice sometimes Jesus compliments the Pharisees. But to be sure they would try to keep it, they built this fence around it. It's not really what the spirit of the law was all. Better than the Sadducees. The Sadducees don't need to get a kid circumcised, they can eat all the pork. Now these are upholding God's law. Jesus was closer theologically to eat with defiled hands. I'll stop there and we'll pick back up. But let's explain what this part right here is about. So Pharisees, we tend to think of Pharisees as bad guys, but really it was upholding God's law for the people. They built this fence around it. And it became sort of an over-literalistic system that's not really what the spirit of the law was all about. So we see the Pharisees, and that's why sometimes, if you notice, sometimes Jesus comes in the Testament, they don't have.
Yeah, I can't find it. It's somewhere around here in the beginning. If somebody find it, you can put the minute mark on my video. But anyway, let's go. Yeah, because this guy is talking about unclean foods that the Jews wouldn't eat. And somebody in the audience says, yeah, like Mexican food. Clearly racist against Mexicans. And this guy didn't check them. So they're clearly racist. So let me go here. Please forgive me, please forgive me, please forgive me. Okay, it's right over here.
Hey, listen, very simple.
There it goes. Another for Muslim men. It seemed like that's what, 10 out of 11 commercials. I think all of them commercials is all Islamic. So is this guy a crypto Mohammedan? Anyway, let me go over here. Bear with me for a minute.
Let's get to know that the Jewish issue. Well, there's a simple verse I see in Revelation. Revelation 2:9 tells you, right?
I'm trying to find this. Bear with me for a minute. He's reading Revelation 2:9 and 3:9. I didn't even see the whole thing, but I said, let me make a video on it. This is Revelation, Vocab Malone's page. Revelation 2:9 and 3:9 don't mean what they say it means. Which in a way he's right, because it was talking about the Jews at those times that didn't accept the Lord. But we use it today. That's why you qualify it. You say, well, back then, but it applies to us now. The things are written aforetime for our learning, that we, through the patience and faith of the scriptures, may have hope. I paraphrase, was that Romans 15:4, I believe. Anyway, let's listen to it. Bear with me for a minute, please. I want to get some points, and I want to read some comments here.
Anybody, what's going on here? Well, there's a similar verse actually in Revelation, chapter 1 as well. So, chapter 3. It's chapter 3. Behold, I will make those of the synagogue of Satan who say that they are Jews but are not, but lie. Behold, I will make them come and bow down before your feet. Those fake Jews are going to bow down before us, they'll say. I mean, you're going to look at them and how these white people get over in the Middle East. They get all burned. They can't be those modern day Jews. It's got to be us. Well, this gets a little bit into Jewish history. First of all, what does Titus 3:9 say? Genealogies. Hebrew Israelites, God bless your soul, are obsessed with genealogies. Titus 3:9 and other genealogies. Hebrew Israelites, God bless you. Don't waste your time on foolish genealogies.
What does it mean by foolish genealogies? Who said that? Paul, the Apostle Paul said that. We're not saying genealogy. When do we ever come up to somebody and say, well, wait a minute, we don't know if you're from the tribe of Judah, so you're going to have to give me a record, your family tree, and it has go all the way back to King David. We're not saying that. Okay, we believe that we're Israelites based upon the Spirit. The Spirit witness with our spirit that we are the children of the sons of the Most High. Romans 8:16 on down. The Jehovah's Witness said, well, how do you don't know that you're Israelite? Because they burnt the records. But somehow these small hats know that they're the people, and they didn't have to produce any genealogy. How do you know who to talk to? If you're talking to an Edomite, all he needs to know is he's an Edomite and he's going into captivity. If you talk to a Hamite, all he needs to know is he's a Hamite and he's going into captivity. And you'll learn the rest of the story in the kingdom. You'll learn the laws. And if it's a so-called Puerto Rican, you would say, brother, you most likely of the tribe of Ephraim. A Negro from down south, whose people are from down south, most likely from the tribe of Judah. You may be Benjamin, you may be Levi. Let's listen on.
Israelites, God bless your soul, are obsessed with genealogies. Titus 3:9.
Give me one video where I went into genealogy, where I made a statement. Oh, you got to show me who your father's father is. When did I ever say that? When did the Apostle Gabar ever say that? When did anybody in the ISUPK say that? IUIC, you know, the HODC, the Sakari, and all them other camps. One body in Yahushai, battle axes of Yahushai, whatever. Give me one video where we pull somebody and says, no, I don't know if you're a Jew, you're a Jew. No. You got to give me a record of your father's line going back 2,000 years ago. We never said that. So this guy's putting words in our mouth. This devil right here is putting words in our mouth.
What does Titus 3:9 say? Don't waste your time on foolish genealogies. Hebrew Israelites, God bless your soul, are obsessed with genealogies. Titus 3:9 and other places say it's a waste of time. That's not what we should be caught up with. When they ask me who are the Jews, so some of you won't like my answer. I believe it's essentially, yes, some of you, if you're getting dropped off right here. Essentially, the answer is the church. Galatians 6:16 says.
You heard that? Did you hear that? Let me let you hear that again.
Yes, some of you, if you're getting dropped off right here. I believe it's essentially who are the Jews. So some of you won't like my answer. I believe it's essentially, yes, some of you, if you're getting dropped off right here. Essentially, the answer is the church. Galatians 6:16 says the Israel of God and referring to the church. Now, you may have a different answer, so you got to work through how you're going to.
Okay, so why isn't he getting on the small hats? Why didn't he take a trip to Israel, tell them that they're not the people? It's about a church. It's not necessarily, he's a defender of the small hats. You'll never see him go to a synagogue. You'll never see him go around small hats and tell them that they're going off. And telling them, oh, you can't push that genealogy thing. He mentioned, he quoted Titus. So why doesn't he get on them? Because he's an apologist for them.
You can answer that. But the Bible's, even where we fall in this, Romans 9-11, what's Paul say? Not all who are Israel are Israel. So it's not a matter of.
And what does that mean? That means you have Israelites that are not in the fold. But they're all going to come back. If your line descends back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, ultimately you're going to come back in the kingdom.
The element in the first place is it? It's a matter of circumcision outwardly? No, circumcision of the heart. Guess what? This is a biblical idea. In John Do you remember what Jesus says to the Jewish leaders of his day? What does Jesus call them, John?
Here he's going to make the statement that he's going to quote or read John. By the way, he's wearing a hat. He's a read of, First Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 11. Okay, he's wearing a hat. Anyway, let me do this. Bear with me for a minute. He goes to John 8, verse 39, then he jumps to 44, and pretty much he says that the Lord called all Israelites a bunch of devils, or ye of your father the devil. No, he didn't call all Israelites that. Now, he didn't exactly say that, but he implied it. And he said this before in other videos. He was talking to the wicked scribes and Pharisees that did not believe that he was a Messiah. He was calling them, you guys are a bunch of devils. Whether there was 20 of them, 30 of them, 50 of them, it wasn't all Israel. So listen on.
Guess what? This is a biblical idea. In John, do you remember what Jesus says to the Jewish leaders of his day? What does Jesus call them in John 8? What's he say about them? Anybody remember? Jesus is having a little debate here.
He said the leaders of that time. Not all the leaders were there. When they confronted John the Baptist in the Jordan, when he was baptizing Israelites and telling them to repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand, did they all come out there? No, because those scribes and Pharisees said, we were sent. They said we were sent. So it's obvious that all of them didn't go there. There was representatives that represent the leadership.
And very interesting what they were talking about. Anybody remember what he says about them? Huh? And he also says, where's that exact verse going? Oh, maybe, I don't know. I'm going to show you in a second here, but you remember what verse is that? It's on John 7, actually. You know the verse top of the head?
John 8:39.
John 8:39. Thank you, Arthur. Appreciate that. What does he say here? John 8:39. Jesus says, if you were Abraham's children, you would be doing the works Abraham did, but now you seek to kill me. Man has told you the truth, but I heard from God. This is not what Abraham did. You were doing the works your father did. Verse 44. You are of your father, the devil. Is Jesus talking to modern day Jews like Seinfeld or something in there? No, who's he talking to? The Jews of his day in the first century, right? Were they fake Jews? Well, the commandment. Who does he say their father is? Now, does he mean literally that, someone might be maybe in the language, but does he mean, do we think that Satan had sex with a bunch of women and produced all these guys? What's he say? He says, because you do the same works as him, right? You're not doing what did Abraham do? Genesis. Abraham believed God and was counted to him for righteousness. Genesis 22 is the binding. Akedah in Hebrew. That's where the binding of Isaac happens. Read that from Genesis 15. God was sin. It was counted to him righteousness because my point, it wasn't after.
Now you notice he says Yahweh because he's convinced that's how you say the name. That's closer to, Jehovah. But how can I say this? He'll never say Yahweh. He'll tell you, no, that's not the way you say it. Why does he say that? Because he was taught to say, when you call on the name of the Most High, in the Hebrew, it's Yahweh. So at least he knows that the name of the Lord is not God or Jesus. And he even calls so-called Jesus, he calls him Yeshua. That come from these Edomite scholars, historians or whatever. We strongly believe that the name Yahweh, you pronounce his name Yahweh and his son's name Yahweh Shai. And guess what? We'll find out. I know goddamn well it's not going to be Yahweh. That's not how the Hebrew works. Anyway, I want to read some of these. Comments here. And yeah, he's right. He says that the Jews of Smyrna, the church of Smyrna, you had Israelites that, and we say that. We qualify by saying this is talking about those unbelieving Jews back there, and they were called the church, the synagogue, or temple of Satan. And you got a woman that doesn't know what's going on. This woman, I'm not even going to read that. But here you got this individual right here, Sandwich, right? He says, statement made at 5:17, if Abraham was counted as righteousness just because of what he believed, then why didn't he stay in Ur the child? I think the Ur of the Chaldees, or Ur, and just have a clear mental thought and believe what the one called God said, or did he believe and do what he was told to do? Right, it's an act. You say you believe something, you're going to show the acts. Like the charagma, you're going to worship the beast, and then to prove that you're worshiping the beast, you're going to accept his charagma. Okay, I'm just looking at these. Okay, this is Truth Seeker. Let's see what he says. Hey, Vocab, can I back up our interpretation of Revelation 2:9 and Revelation 3:9 with Ezekiel 35 and Ezekiel 36, 1-7, to prove who's in the land presently, and to back up our stance, by the way, when's the next smoke room? I got plenty of it. Okay, so the individual compares Revelation 2:9 to Revelation 3:9, which pretty much would be a fulfillment of, he's saying, Ezekiel 35. And I'm not going to go all into Ezekiel 35. It speaks about the Edomites and their perpetual hatred for Jake. Okay, this is Sandwich. Okay, Israel is the church. Israel is the church. So somewhere in this video, I'm not going to watch the whole thing. I'm not going to look for it. Israel is the church. Not only that, the book of Acts speaks about the church being in the wilderness, while adding possessive pronouns, excuse me, got caught up on that word, tongue twister, possessive pronouns about who received the word while in the wilderness. Acts 7:38. And Vocab always refers to the church. Ultimately, he just said that. He says it's not talking about the so-called small hats either. It's talking about the church. And to him, the church is anybody that believes. That's why he mentioned Abraham. So you can be a Moabite and believe you're a part of the church. You know, you can be an Eskimo, you can be Elamite, you can be a Hamite, you know, and that's part of the church. It said, this is he that was the church, that was in the church in the wilderness with the angel which spake to him in the Mount Sinai, and with our fathers who received. This is Stephen speaking. Stephen was an Israelite. He says the church, which is in the wilderness, which is Israel, our fathers. So the fathers of what Stephen is talking about, and he's talking to those Jews with him from Alexandria. He said, our fathers, meaning Israelites, who received the lively oracles, which are the laws, to give unto us. So this guy, Sandwich, he cut them on that, man. And then you see how many times, how many replies come up. Okay, what does that have to do with the church of the Gentiles in the New Testament? Well, the church of the Gentiles in the New Testament, the Gentiles that receive salvation are Israelites. Read 1 Corinthians 12, 1 and 2 again. Ye were Gentiles carried away by these dumb idols. Who was he talking to? He was talking to Israelites that were following the custom, the Greco-Roman Hellenized customs. That's why he got on the men about having long hair. And he said, there's no customs like that in any of the churches. He was getting them out of those customs. So if you're a man and you know that you're an Israelite and you got long hair, you're definitely doing it based upon a Hellenized custom, a Greek custom, which is out of order. And that's Paul speaking, which Paul was inspired by the Most High, by the Lord. Okay, let me read this. Sandwich. Did you read what was posted? The book of Acts is so-called New Testament. The text of the church is pointing to the Israelites. Let me read it again. This is Sandwich. Which is the church? What Israel is the church? Not only that, the book of Acts speaks about the church being in the wilderness while adding possessive pronouns. Like if you say, this is my son, John. When you say this is my son, that's a noun. When you say his name, that's a pronoun. This is my son, noun, named John, pronoun. Oh, that's a building over there. Oh, that's the Empire State Building over there. What's the difference? The building over there is a noun. The Empire State Building, which is the name of the building, it becomes a pronoun. Noun is a person, place, or thing. Pronoun is when you like name something. Oh, that's a car. That's a noun. Oh, that's a Lexus. 2022 Lexus, whatever. That's a pronoun. While adding possessive pronouns about who received the word while in the wilderness. The oracles represent the laws. Let me read some more. Okay, this is in hoc signo Venus, in this sign conquer. That was the vision that Constantine, which by the way, the man that made that statement was an Israelite, a Jake. And this sign overcome or conquer, be victorious. At Sandwich, the New Testament is Jesus, Matthew 26, verse 28, the church that existed prior to the Lord's advent. In the Old Testament were those that believed in the Messiah, the father, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And we are the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The prophets, which are Israelites. The other righteous men, which are Israelites. Not just anybody, but those who desired to see the Messiah, who were Israelites. Matthew 13, verse 17, for verily I say unto you that many prophets and righteous men have desired to see those things which ye see, right? Because they wasn't there, and have not seen them, and to hear those things which ye hear and have not heard them. And in the New Testament, the church encompass all nations. No, it does not. Only Israel. Read Romans chapter 9. And there's many other scriptures, but Romans chapter 9 breaks it down. It says, in all that there shall be a root of Jesse. What is a root of Jesse? Who came out of Jesse? David. Who came out of the lineage of David? Our Lord, which stand for an ensign of the people of Israel. To it shall the Gentiles seek, the Israelites being called Gentiles, coming out of that Gentile state of mind, and his rest shall be glorious, which is the kingdom, right? I got to read Romans 9. I hate to sound like a broken record, but let me read that again. Isaiah 11. This guy pulled out the wrong scriptures. It says Isaiah 11, verse 10. And in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, which is our Lord Yahushua, because he came out of King David's line, which shall stand for ensign of the people Israelites. For to it shall the Gentiles, the Israelites. Cornelius, at one point he wasn't being taught that he was an Israelite, but he found out he was an Israelite and believed. And his rest shall be glorious. His rest shall be glorious. His rest shall be glorious. Whose rest? The Lord's rest and our rest. And I'm going to close it. But anytime this guy does a video where he goes off, I'm going to counter it. Okay, Romans 9. That's the go-to scripture to show you that the Lord is only dealing with Israel. And by the way, this is after Cornelius, Acts 10th chapter and 11th chapter. Cornelius was an Israelite. I say this truth in Yahushua, I lie not, my conscience also bear me at the Holy Spirit, that I have great heaviness and continue sorrow in my heart, for I can wish that myself were cursed from the Messiah, for my brethren, my kinsmen, according to the flesh. Now you might say brother in the spirit, kinsman in the spirit. He says according to the flesh. According to the flesh, my brother, my kinsman, according to the flesh, who are Israelites. You can't get around that. You can't be. He says, for I could wish that myself were cursed from the Messiah, for my brethren, my kinsmen, according to the flesh, his fellow Benjamites, his fellow Judites, his fellow Levites, his fellow Issacharites. James 1:1. To the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greeting, because they knew that there was a scattering. Isaiah 11 was that, starting at the 10th verse, that the Gentiles, it speaks about the Gentiles. It says, for I could wish that myself were cursed from the Messiah, for my brethren, his actual brethren, my kinsmen, my cousins, my nephews, my second cousins, and my third cousins, my uncles, my aunts, which are from the same family tree, according to the flesh, who are Israelites. So what does it say? What does it mean by who are Israelites in the 4th verse? The Israelites, anybody that come from the line of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. The sons that came out of Jacob, all their sons were considered Israelites. The church in the wilderness were the Israelites. What about the mixed multitudes? What about the mixed multitudes? They were done away with. They were the ones that murmured to try to get Israel to murmur to go back to Egypt. It was a mixed multitude people. It said, to whom pertaineth the adoption and the glory, right? And his rest shall be glorious, right? Glorious, glory, same word. And the covenants, both covenants. Like I said, I hate to sound like a broken record. You know, I notice Romans 9 so good I can say it off the top of my head. It says covenants. What does it mean by covenants? And the giving of the law and the service of the Most High. And what's the service of the Most High? The priesthood, a nation of kings and priests, right? And the promises. The promises came from who? From Abraham. Read Galatians, the 3rd chapter. So why does it say covenants? because there were two covenants. There was two covenants. Let's prove that. And then I'm gonna close. This is almost like a back to the basics type of lesson, because you got a lot of new people in here that don't understand this. And you might accept the fact that you're Israelite, but you run into a Christian that's really studied in the Bible, they're gonna trap you up like vocab. If you really don't know the scriptures, vocab will trap you up. He'll have you believing that the Lord came for everybody. Okay, let me see here. Okay, covenants, Bible. Let me see what they say. Bible. What are the 7 covenants in the Bible? What does a covenant mean in the Bible? Where are the covenants in the Bible? Let me do it. Let me do it this way. Let me do it this way. Let me put it in this way. New Covenant Bible. Christianity, the key New Testament chapter for the Christian concept of the new covenant in Hebrews chapter 8, a portion of which is quoted below. But now Jesus has obtained a superior ministry, since the covenant that he mediates is also better and is enacted on better promises. Okay, you know what I got to do now? I got to go. You see what they did? Oh, this is for Christians. Now you can come in. It's not just Israel. This is the body of believers. What is it called? Was that called? The term that this guy, theologian, damn, I can't think of the term. It's right on the tip of my tongue. It'll come back to me. Bear me for a minute. Replacement theology. Look that up. That's what this guy is a teacher of. Replacement theology. Let me go into that, and I'm gonna close. Please bear with me. Keep in mind, this guy said Christianity, blah blah blah, the Christians. And then he mentions Hebrews chapter 8, right? Replacement. Okay, replacement theology. Supersessionism, also called replacement theology. This is what this guy, clown, vocab teaches. Or fulfillment theology, because the true fulfillment is that it was given to the body of believers, which are not Israel. The Israelites got to take a back seat. Is a Christian theology which asserts that the new covenant through Jesus Christ has surpassed or replaced the messianic covenant exclusive to the Jews. Okay, let's find out. And then I'm gonna close. This is back to the basics. Hebrews 8. Let's see if it says it's talking about people of another nation. Start at the 6th verse. But now hath he obtained a more excellent ministry, by how much also he is the mediator of a better covenant, which was established upon better promises, right? A new covenant. And it mentions Jeremiah 31 to 34. 7th verse, for if that first covenant had been faultless, then should no place have been found sought for the second. For finding fault with them, he saith, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. Why did he say with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah? Because remember, there was a split. Go back to the history. So we know that this is not talking about two churches of believers of every nation. He's talking exclusively about the house of Israel and the house of Judah. When you go back to Ezekiel 37, one of my favorite chapters, around about the 16th verse, starting at the 16th verse, it speaks about the tribes. One stick, Judah and his companions, Benjamin and Levi. Another stick, Ephraim or Joseph and his companions, and put those sticks together. So right here it's saying Israel in the house of Judah, right? Two sticks. They came together for fulfillment, the fulfillment of Ezekiel 37. So we know that this verse right here is not talking about the body of believers, no matter what nation you come from. It's talking about Israelites. Covenant, I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. Let me do this. This is for you skeptics out there. I should say demons out there. Okay, who is the house of Israel in the Bible? The house of Israel are God's covenant people. Jacob had 12 sons. These sons and their families became known as the 12 tribes of Israel, or Israelites. See Genesis 49:28, Jacob was a grandson of Abraham. That's all you need to know. Vocab. I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, because they continue not in my covenant, and I regarded them not, saith the Lord. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel. Now you notice he doesn't say Judah and Israel, because they're together now. After those days, which is now, saith the Lord, I will put my laws. This is a kingdom, actually, when we change. 1 Corinthians 15, around about the 50th verse, on down 52nd verse, into their mind, and program them and write them in the Israelites' hearts, minds. The Hebrew word for heart is lav, which means mind. And so if you say, I'm coming from the heart, you put your hand on your heart, you're really supposed to be put your hand in your head. I'm coming from the heart, and I will be to them a power, and they shall be to me a people. Who? The Israelites. The Israelites. So if you're an Edomite, you're any other, Vocab Malone, if you're an Edomite, you're gonna go into hardcore slavery. You better hope that you're a Hamite, a light-skinned Hamite. So that way you don't catch hell like the Edomite. Edomites are gonna catch the worst hell, and then you're gonna be done away with, pursuant to Obadiah, 1 verse 18. And let me just say this in closing about the Georgia Guidestones. A lot of things. A former premier of Japan got assassinated. Abe, that's all in the news. You had the opening of CERN. That's a whole nother lesson. Now you had one of the brothers put up a video saying, when you open up CERN, this is what happened. Your Georgia Guidestones went down. This happened, that happened. No, I believe, my personal belief, it's not all that important to me. They did that. They did that. Because when that explosion took place, that was a crime scene. The local police were supposed to come over, the FBI or whatever, and take pictures and get evidence. What did they immediately do? They closed it down. They did that because now they're entering into the next phase. They're going to really, in these next 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, I'll say 3 months, they're going to really push. There's going to be a lot of changes around here. Things are going to get harder. Everything going to put they're going to tighten. They're going to put the grip on you harder. Anyway, with that, I'm going to say shalom.